Well, it's that time of year again, where every man and his dog seem to want to show off their watch collection for the validation of strangers on the other side of a screen who they'll never meet. And, you know what they say, if you can't beat 'em, join 'em. Welcome to Addicted to Watches. Today, we're doing something we haven't done for a while. If you watched my previous collection video last year, you'll see a few familiar faces, but there have been a lot of changes too. What I can tell you is that of the 37 watches that we looked at in that video, 10 are still here, but all the others have been replaced. We know why you're here, and it's not just to listen to me talk, it's to look at watches. So, let's get into it. For this video, I've divided the watches into a few different groups. We'll see the ones that are here for a good time but not a long time. We'll see ones that made it into my core collection. We'll see ones that are neither here nor there in terms of staying long term. Any good video needs a bit of anticipation building up, so I'll save the core collection for later, and start with the temporary visitors. Okay, so we've got this group of watches in front of us here, but don't get me wrong, I still do like pretty much all of these watches too. I buy all of these watches myself for the channel, so I only really want to buy watches I actually like. First up is a watch that appeared in my previous collection video, and I just haven't gotten around to making a video about this one just yet. It's one of the original models from Seiko's Brights line, the SAG-Y003. It's got this interesting texture to the dial, and the titanium build with radio wave movement makes it a good option as an easy grab and go piece. Next to that is another watch with a lot of similarities, the SAG-V001, with a kinetic perpetual calendar movement. What initially drew me to this was the big date complication there at 12, and besides the fact that it is a little bit beat up, I've really enjoyed wearing it. It has the vibe of a much more expensive piece. Continuing with the perpetual calendar theme is this one here with an integrated bracelet and distinct orange accents. This one is the SBQK083, and seems to have a bit of a cult following along with other models featuring the 8F32 movement. The only downside of these is finding a battery when the time comes to replace it. Another quartz watch, and there is this ANA collaboration solar chronograph, which has a pretty interesting world map dial. Seiko have done quite a few collabs with ANA to produce watches, and we may even see some more later on. Sticking with chronographs, and there's this simple black dialed SBTQ041. This one is just a simple, honest chronograph, and though it looks like it's already copped a bit of a beating in its lifetime, it'll continue a bit longer as a beater for me. With only a couple left on the table here, let's move on to this little square number. It's a vintage silver wave with a tank-like case and Roman numeral hour markers. It has just the right amount of two-tone to not look gaudy, and I'm half tempted to keep this one a little longer. Saving the best for last here, and we'll finish off this group of quartz with the Seiko Astron SBXY017. It's a relatively simple Astron from Seiko when compared to their other models, and, just like the SBXY033 I reviewed a while ago, makes a pretty compelling case for itself. One standout in particular is the AR on the crystal that makes it really disappear. Moving on to the next group here, and we have digital, so you know it's pretty much guaranteed to be Casio. First up are these two color versions of the same watch which arrived recently from Japan. The LF20W series has this very redundant but amusing set of analog hands displayed on the digital screen, which is something I've seen on many other older digital watches from Seiko, Citizen and Casio, and always had a bit of a soft spot for. When I saw these for around 25 USD in Japan, I figured I'd grab a couple and check them out. The other rectangular Casio on the table is this one that is embarrassingly still in the box. I also picked this one up from Japan, but did so when I was there at the start of the year. I'll get around to opening this MDW sometime soon. I promise. The thing I liked about this, for a similar $25 price tag, is the inclusion of a stainless steel bezel. Moving on to some G-Shocks, and there are two others here I picked up on that trip to Japan. The first is the GA2100, otherwise known as the Cassiope. And, to be honest, I wasn't really a fan of this one before I picked it up. I saw it in a second-hand shop for not much, and it pleasantly surprised me. The other G-Shock from that trip is this collaboration 5600 with ANA, all Nippon Airways. It's in the form factor of my favourite G-Shock, and the branding isn't overdone. The Easter egg with these collaboration models is the screen, which, in this case, has a picture of a plane illuminated in a different colour. The other two on the table are some more collaboration 5600 models. What can I say? I went down a rabbit hole with these ones. The first is this Georgia coffee one in white. The light on this one completes the image of the coffee cup down below, with steam rising out of it. If you've been to Japan, odds are you've had a Georgia coffee at some point. The other one is an equally amusing Premium Malts Beer 10th anniversary collaboration. Both this and the Georgia originally could not be purchased, but had to be won in a lottery-style competition, with tickets you got when buying the brand's products. The light on this one is simply the brand logo, which is a little more boring unfortunately. There is one more digital in the collection we'll see a bit later, but that's all for these ones now. Still in the short term, but switching over to some automatics, and surprise surprise we have more Seiko. First up is this SBSA 227, the JDM model of a somewhat recent mid-sized diver from Seiko's 5 range. Soon after they came out, I tried on the light blue version of this one, and didn't like it at all, but the combination of champagne dial and grey bezel works really well in my opinion on this one. Another mid-sized Seiko on the table is in the form of this SNZF 25J1, an unusual colourway of the Seiko Sea Urchin series. Like the SBSA we just looked at, the colour combination between dial and bezel makes this watch pop, and I also really enjoyed wearing the smaller form factor dive watch that it provides. There is one more dive style watch on the table, and that's this SSK 021 USA release, with grey dial and gold accents. I've never really bothered much with the SKX format watch, but have enjoyed the time I've spent with this one. Maybe I'll end up a convert and this will make its way into the core collection. Maybe. Speaking of gold, this cocktail time looking watch isn't actually what you think. It comes from a time before that line was even a line, and has a 6R movement inside. From back when Seiko had their amazing value range of JDM watches, this is the Saab 066. It's seen better days, but might be fun as a bit of a project watch. Who knows? One that actually is a cocktail time is this SRPJ21J, which splits the previous cocktail time watch sizes down the middle, coming in at a Goldilocks 39.5mm. It has a dial that is a bit more subtle than the other cocktail times, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Next up is this brilliant blue GMT. This one has a 4S movement inside, and was a GMT before GMTs were popular. It is a little older, and comes from Seiko's SUS collection, the SCFF009, and it has a look unlike anything else in my collection at the moment. Finally, we get to something that's not a Seiko, though it is Seiko powered with an NH35 movement. It's an Addies Dive Pilot that I've been using to scratch the IWC Mark 20 itch somewhat successfully. This watch also represents some of the crazy value you can get from AliExpress if you're fine with homage watches. Now we're getting to the good stuff. That is to say, the pieces that are vying for a spot in the more permanent collection. These ones have either grown on me a lot more than I expected to, or I liked them, but I'm not sure how much I really like them. Since we've done it this way already, I'll separate quartz and automatic, and start off with these quartz watches in front of me here. First up is yet another ANA collaboration with Seiko. This one takes their smaller sized Flightmaster and gives it a bit of a two-tone twist. I think it's just enough gold colour to set off the details without looking too flashy, even though it's busy. Another Seiko collaboration, but this time with Nano Universe, is this SZER102, which has a bit of a vintage look on the outside, but a modern mecha quartz movement on the inside. I've really liked both the look and size of this one, as with the previous Seiko, and the next one as we'll see too. I'm not sure if I really want a chronograph in my core collection. Speaking of that other chronograph, it's this recently arrived Seiko SUS model, with a pretty stunning silver sunburst dial. It has a more interesting dial design with those vertically stacked subdials, linked by the telemeter scale in the middle. It also has an alarm, which I haven't been game enough to try out yet, but as far as an everyday watch goes, I've been enjoying it a lot. Since there is only one Seiko left on the table, let's get that one up next. And it's yet another from the box that arrived recently from Japan. Maybe it's recency bias that is making so many of those watches land in this category, but either way, I've been really enjoying a lot of those. It's a simple, small, understated everyday watch from Seiko's SUR line, and I believe this was a European only release. So, I'm as confused as you are with how I ended up importing this from Japan. Either way, its clean and simple looks have had me really wondering what I need out of a watch, and if that really has enough. Next up is a Citizen, a brand that's been creeping its way into my collection, and I'm sure many others in recent years, with their consistent hit releases. This one may not have been as popular as some others, but it is one of the first watches from the brand to feature their 365 Eco Drive movement, which can last for a whole year on a single charge. The fact that it has this aventurine dial, which still managed to be subtle, is icing on the cake. Finally, we have probably the smallest watch in the collection at the moment, but by no means the least. This little lip, not HP though the logo may look similar, comes from a French brand and has more than a bit of reverso in its design. It's exactly for that reason I picked it up, and though the size and wearing experience takes a little bit of getting used to, once you do, it's a lot of fun. It looks surprisingly good on a NATO as well. We're getting closer to the end of the road that is the core collection, but before that, we have one last stop here with the automatics trying to push their way in. There are a couple of doubles on the table, so let's take care of those first. Originally, I got this pistachio green Bulova Surveyor because I really like the colour, and I still do of course. The problem is, it only came on a leather strap. The solution? Buy the dark green version which does come on a bracelet, and swap it between them. The next problem, I also really liked the dark green dial, so here we are. I will say I'm not a huge fan of the all polished cases, but I think those dials do enough to distract me. The other double is this pair of Seiko Tic Tac collaboration models. When they were released, they were hyped up as Seiko's Explorer alternative, and I can see it, but they're also distinctly their own thing. That grey-dialed SZSB007 is very dynamic, but I wish those hour markers were loomed, like the 006 next to it. We have a similar situation here, with one coming on a bracelet, but that's not why I picked up both. I just really liked the designs in this case. Sharing that same case and model reference is this SZSB011, which is a standard Seiko release and has this silvery, almost champagne dial. It offers a different dial option in the same form factor and is much more readily available. With a very similarly coloured dial is this SCVS009, which is even more Explorer-like than those Tic Tacs. This one is slightly older from Seiko's collection and has their 6R15 movement as well as this angular case that reminds me a lot of more recent King Seiko releases. It's a very comfortable size to fly under the radar, and I think is very much an if you know you know kind of Seiko. Something that does actually have a champagne dial is this SCVS001, which has stuck around since my last collection video, and uses the same case as the iconic Saab, but pairs it with a bit of gold on the dial and an arguably more interesting bracelet. There's a lot to like and not a lot to dislike with this one. The last Seiko on the table is this little vintage Lordmatic. I picked it up on that Japan trip at the beginning of the year. I was after a linen dial watch for quite a long time, but was waiting for the right combination of design, condition and price, and this just about fit the bill perfectly. Check out that sag on that beads of rice bracelet though, you know it's really comfortable on wrist. Though not quite as old as that Lordmatic, this Orient Star does definitely have a vintage feel about it. It's got this vibrant, very dynamic blue dial, and the size is just about perfect for my preferences. Plus, I just think it has a lot of character. Last but not least is my latest pickup, a watch that needs no introduction, the Tsuyosa Small Seconds. If you've watched any of my videos before, you probably know that I have a thing for textured dials, and of all the watches released in the past year or two, this one has to be up there with the best of them. It takes the already popular Tsuyosa platform and gives it a twist. I was originally planning to just make the review and move it on, but that was before I saw it in person and spent some time with it. Now, it's here in the group of watches looking to push their way into my core collection. Okay, if you've stuck around this long, I won't make you wait any longer. The core collection. My intentions for this are to have 10 watches maximum, though there are a few extras here. I went as far as getting a travel case that fits exactly 10 to force myself into limiting this collection. It didn't exactly work out, but it's a work in progress. I want these to be watches that I truly love and will always enjoy wearing. Many of these have a special meaning to me as well. I'm not sure where exactly to begin here, but let's get stuck into it. Let's take a look at the Blue Presage first. It has some significance to me for a couple of reasons. It's the Seiko Presage Starlight SRPC01. It was the first watch I paid full price for from a boutique on my watch journey. It's also the first limited edition cocktail time that Seiko released, and is number 13 out of 3,000 pieces, which just happens to be the date of my birthday. At this point, it's also the oldest piece in my collection. I picked it up on release in late 2017, early 2018, and have moved or sold all the other watches I had in my collection prior to this one. Blue dials are also my favourite, so for all of those reasons, it's a keeper in my core collection, and I can't see myself ever thinking of selling it. In a similar vein is this, another limited edition cocktail time, but this time in matcha green. The numeral layout on this one is a bit different, but the texture of the dial itself is quite similar. It's also a bit smaller, at 38.5mm compared to 40.5, and just a gorgeous watch overall. Next up in the core collection is a watch that would be another Presage if it happened to be made by Seiko, but this one is a Citizen. This one features a silver leaf lacquer dial, which gives it this depth. It is also a bit special to me, because it's the first watch, and currently only, that I was able to get thanks to this channel, from a sponsored video. Your first is always special, and it's a good reminder to appreciate all of you that are watching my videos. Another Citizen and another spectacular dial is this Unite with Blue ProMaster Eco Drive Diver. This watch was made to promote ocean conservation, and the dial uses special Fujifilm ink to give it a unique shifting colour and texture. I originally bought this to review and flip, but it pushed its way into being the one and only diver in my core collection. Next up is a pretty special Seiko. This is one of their Laurel models that was only produced for a very short amount of time in 1996. It houses a 4S15 movement, and, even with gold Roman numeral hour markers, still manages to be beautifully understated and a little sporty. Time for a break from Seiko, and this is a 2-for-1. If you watched my recent unboxing from Japan, you will have seen this cream-dialed Kuoe field watch. What I might not have mentioned in that video is that I actually already picked up this brown-dialed no-date version locally here in Australia. The brown dial has a much more pronounced texture, but this cream dial is more versatile. I'm not exactly in a rush to pick one over the other, so they'll both hang around for a little while. We've had a 2-for-1, now it's time for a 3-for-1. Here we have a San Martin and 2 Hamiltons. The San Martin is one of their Tudor Black Bay lookalikes, but has a case more like the Ranger. While the Hamilton with the brown dial comes from their Khaki Field Auto collection. I've made no secret of my love affair with the non-diver Black Bay, and this San Martin gets so close to perfect in terms of size and design. And I really liked the brown dialed Hamilton, but I can't help but wonder if that other black dialed Hamilton kind of fills the role of both of these. It's got a slightly smaller size than that other Hamilton at 38mm, which I really like, with a pretty similar dial layout. It also has that black and gold thing going on just like the San Martin. These 3 plus the ones we've already looked at in the core collection make 10, but I've got more to go, so I'll have to trim it down, and maybe this is somewhere I can. Surprisingly, that San Martin isn't the only AliExpress watch in the core collection at the moment. I also picked up fairly recently this Pierre Paulin Jump Hour. Like many of you, I had seen some videos of it floating around on YouTube, and the quality of the dial finishing combined with a couple of interesting complications really appealed to me. Again, I picked it up expecting to make a video and flip it, but for now at least, it's pushed its way into my core collection. We still have 7 more to look at, so let's keep going with Casio and this World Time. Pretty much the only reason I picked this up was because I liked that world map on the dial, and it doesn't look like a toy in the way that the Casio Royale does to me. This one is in the core collection because everyone needs a Casio Digital, right? And by a Casio digital, I of course mean 2 Casio digitals, because I also have this DW5600 Tough Solar G-Shock in the core collection. This watch is the epitome of a beater, and has served me well from the beach to the cricket pitch and everywhere in between, without missing a beat. These next two are more you'll recognise from my recent Japan haul. The first of which is this factory anniversary model that was only available for the workers of that factory to purchase. It's a rare watch with a pretty interesting story, and I was really lucky to find this one in unworn condition. It might sound strange to have a Seiko as a safe queen, but I think that's what I'll do with this one for now. Up next is this little square Creedor number. It's a bit on the small side, but I've gotten used to that, and in recent times, whenever I'm looking for a simple, elegant and understated watch, I find myself reaching for this one. This next one is very much in a similar vein, and is a vintage-ish Grand Seiko quartz model. This one was actually the first Grand Seiko model released with a quartz movement. Yes, there were Grand Quartz Seikos before this, but it was the first with specifically Grand Seiko branding. It's just another classy, timeless, and drop-dead gorgeous watch. This is also one that I can never see myself selling. Another Grand Seiko, but this time a bit more modern, is this anniversary limited edition nicknamed the Cookie, thanks to that rich chocolate brown dial. It was released alongside the famous Whirlpool, and features the same dial pattern. It's one that I picked up while I was living in Japan, and wears much better than the 42mm case size might suggest. It was my first big boy watch purchase, and I just get lost in that dial every time I look at it. We're finally here at the last watch of my core collection. It is one final watch I was lucky to be able to get my hands on while living in Japan, and is of course the Lake Suwa SLGA007, with that dial that mimics the rippling surface of water. It is also the watch which debuted Grand Seiko's new 9R A2 spring drive movement with a power reserve indicator moved to the back and 5 days of power when fully wound. It comes from their Evolution 9 collection. Spring drive gives it that silky smooth sweep, and light just dances across the dial as you turn it. It was so incredibly close to perfect for me, and I could happily have this watch as my only watch. I say as I've just discussed my 10 watch core collection, which actually has 18 watches at the moment. So, that's it. For all 2 of you out there who were wondering what watches are in my actual collection, here they are. At this point in my collecting journey, I'd like to think I have a pretty resolved taste, and know what I like and what I don't. The main problem is I like too many of them, and they end up in the house. Do I have plans or intentions for the collection going forward? Of course I do. I'd like to cut down that 18 to closer to the 10 like I have planned for my core collection, and also have a few I'm keeping an eye out on. Those are the Seiko SPB211J, a Citizen NB1050 or 1060, and maybe something a little more out of left field, like a Zin or Ball. Either way, I'll have plenty of watches to keep me busy making videos, so you don't need to worry about that. In fact, there are quite a few that I've already had come and go from the collection whose videos I haven't even posted yet, so keep an eye out for those as well. If you made it all the way to the end here, thanks for sticking around. What do you think about these watches? Would you swap out any from my core collection? What's your collection like? Should I just get rid of them all and get a Rolex? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.